Has your marketing gone bitter or sour? Sit back and enjoy top shelf strategies from the Search Bar, now in season 2, where we're serving up fresh perspectives to help you and your digital marketing thrive. I am your host, Eric Ritter, self-proclaimed SEO sommelier and CEO of Digital Neighbor, a friendly neighborhood marketing and SEO company based in Tampa, Florida. In this new season, the Search Bar will deep dive into key SEO and PPC elements and trending digital topics every business owner should know. In today's episode, we'll be talking about all things paid media and PPC and how it can transform your brand's visibility. We'll explore strategies and tools that can help you run impactful, cost-effective campaigns. And make sure you stay tuned to the end because I'll share a PPC checklist that for everyone with actionable items that you can actually download after the episode. So we'll post that link in the show notes. But let's get into today's episode. I'm really excited to be joined by Jacob Hribal, who is a senior paid search manager, and I'm really excited to welcome him today. Welcome, Jacob.
Thank you for having me, Eric. For those that don't know, Eric and I actually have known each other for quite some time now. He was my professor back in my college days and was able to give me a great introduction into digital marketing and eventually start my career. Since then, after my college graduation, I've been working in paid search for 7 years now and have managed a breadth of verticals, including finance, medical, confectionery, retail, and working with some large brands that are including global Fortune 50 companies. So I'm excited to bring my experience here and to share as much as I possibly can with your community, Eric.
Well, thank you for being here, Jacob. Obviously, you have a lot of experience when it comes to PPC and paid media. So really looking forward to hearing some insights from you. I always like to start off talking about, what actually paid media or PPC is and why is it important? Why are you excited about PPC here in 2024 going into 2025?
That's a great question. So just from a paid media perspective, it's really any advertising that you have in market that you are personally paying for, not from a organic standpoint, but a pay-per-click model, which is what PPC stands for. And in my specific vertical in paid search, that's inclusive of Google search engines, Microsoft search engines, aka Bing, and on the YouTube fronts as well. Why it's important is really from a market share perspective. What we talk about a lot within paid search is that we utilize search as a catcher's glove to be able to take in any demand that your company is already working hard to be able to generate through your other either traditional or organic advertising efforts that you've been putting together. And paid search is able to culminate all of that demand within your Google Ads platforms. Now, as far as, kind of use cases, it does take some pre-existing demand and awareness to be able to utilize search appropriately.
Right.
Because we are the lowest part of the funnel. If there isn't a demand or a, inquiry into your services or your brand in particular, it won't be as useful to use the more lower funnel tactics within paid search, but that's where you have other channels such as YouTube, paid social, outside of, paid search aspects, programmatic, direct, that are fantastic channels to help generate that awareness and to be able to get as much of your, offerings, your primary selling points and any particular initiatives that your business is working towards out into the market to eventually start working towards capturing that demand in paid search.
I love that. And I really like how you explain that it's, I don't always like to call it a funnel, right? But it really is, that full funnel approach. It's not just, you can't just stand there, like you said, with a catcher's mitt or catching the customers. You need to also think about the top of the funnel of the branding, creating awareness, people that are, not aware of the brand. They're maybe not even aware of your solution, right? They might know they have a problem, but they don't know what that solution is. So you need to get in front of them and present that solution, which brings me into kind of a sidebar here, which is I recently found out, and we started playing around with this on my end, is that you can do search ads on TikTok. So I thought that was a really interesting one, right? Because, we met not that long ago, right? We're not that old. In my class at USF, and for the last maybe 2 years, I've heard a lot from students that they really don't trust Google. They don't trust Big Brother anymore. So they'd rather search on TikTok, right? And I think as marketers, it's important for us to be where those eyeballs are, where the people are. And of course, the demographic on TikTok skews much younger, but just curious kind of what your thoughts are as a paid search strategist. Are we going to be doing paid search ads on TikTok in the future?
Yeah, no, these are all great questions. So really how the market has been changing in regards to users' search journeys and how they are trying to educate themselves about products or offerings before they make that finalized purchase. Paid social, in particular TikTok, has become a monumental factor there. It was already a big factor, but just in consumer changes and trends and how they are doing their research before they make an actual purchase, on the side of utilizing TikTok to be able to help facilitate a lot of your paid search efforts, the consumer journeys have changed, where
Right.
a lot of the user base now is doing their initial research phases on channels such as TikTok or other paid social platforms to be able to get the initial understandings of each brand. Because a big part that I think that to a degree brands know, but don't really take into consideration is that yes, the actual products themselves are important, but what you represent and stand for as a brand is also very important to the younger consumer base now.
Right.
And they can learn a lot more about you through your TikTok channels, through what individuals are giving reviews about your TikTok channels or your products via TikTok. And it's been a great starting point to catch consumers in their initial phase of curiosity and research before they eventually come back and convert on paid search within Google. Though consumers aren't doing as much initial research on Google, they are still coming back and making that final purchase there. So they kind of work, and not even kind of, they really work hand in hand, where that initial curiosity phase is supplemented through TikTok, and then the final conversion phase is captured within paid search, whether it be Google, Microsoft, or what have you.
Gotcha. So I think that makes a lot of sense, right? So what I heard there is TikTok, yes, but not just TikTok, right? Using it strategically as part of a larger campaign in order to almost generate demand and help educate people and then capture them actually with search. So, which brings me kind of to my next question, because I want to talk more about PPC on search engines specifically, right? You mentioned Microsoft, Bing, Google. Those are the big two, right? Those are really the two to choose from right now. When, as a brand, would you choose Google? When would you choose Bing? Or do you choose both? How does that really work?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it really depends on what your services and company structure is providing. There are great use cases for both Google and Microsoft slash Bing. For those at home that don't know, Bing's advertising platform has changed to Microsoft Ads. So if you hear me say Microsoft, it's in reference to Bing in
Got it.
particular.
You need to know Microsoft ads to run ads on Bing, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. It is a new nomenclature for their advertising platform. It is still Bing as a search engine, but the actual advertising platform is called Microsoft Ads now.
Got it. Okay.
And from that kind of standpoint, if you're talking just user base, Google's going to have a much larger user base in comparison to Bing.
Right.
And that necessarily won't change. However, the types of users in between each channel is where you can get really strategic in what you want to, be able to glean from this. For example, Microsoft is really great with some B2B offerings. Microsoft is great when you're talking about tech space, verticals, finance, any of the industries that you can think that utilize a lot of Microsoft Edge products or Microsoft search engine products and things of that nature. Also, just from a demographic standpoint, Microsoft skews a little bit older. So if you have some product sets that are better use cases for a older demographic, Microsoft might be a great opportunity for you to expand into. Whereas Google offers a very wide array of verticals and offerings in regards to who you can capture, who you can kind of work through. Part with Google is it's a very large ecosystem. So you are going to have more competition. Prices might be a little bit more expensive. It's still a fantastic platform to utilize. It's just really where you're comfortable as a business being able to expand your, advertising spending and where you believe within your offerings you're going to get the best return.
Got it. That makes so much sense, right? Like based on who you're trying to reach, based on demographic, based on vertical, choose the right platform. Let me run my strategy by you and get your feedback on it, because it's a little bit different than what you just said, which is we always start in Google. So we start in Google, create a discovery campaign, find out keywords that are working. We scale those winners right into the campaigns. And then because Bing, Microsoft ads kind of know their place in the universe. So they have that simple import from Google button. So you can then take those winners from Google, right? Because you have a bigger sea that you're fishing in, a bigger ocean. So you've kind of tested it out, proof of concept. And then we bring it into Bing. And a lot of times we see 40 to 60% lower cost per click in Bing. And we can actually get some good conversions in there. However, it's much lower search volume. So you don't want to start there, but it's somewhere to expand once we've kind of, we have all our nets cast in Google. It's another place to cast some nets in Bing. So again, starting in Google, getting all the learnings, importing that into Bing, running there. Just curious kind of, your thoughts on that strategy.
No, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Really, it's not a either or premise if you have the budget in order to test. I think that just from a best practice standpoint, starting off within Google is usually your best bet as a company, just to get those initial feelers out there, get as much data and insights as you can. And you summed it up perfectly, where you take what is working well within Google and replicate it within Microsoft. Because it does have the cheaper CPCs, lower competition. There's always opportunities to be able to expand and test more within each of your platforms. The desired state is to have both Google and Microsoft present within your advertising. It doesn't have to be a one-to-one between them as far as investment or expectations on returns. However, it's great to have an understanding that a diversified search portfolio is going to allow your business a higher opportunity to capture your consumers within their purchase journeys and their consideration journeys. To an earlier topic that we talked about, even with TikTok, I don't think one of the main things that I've seen in my industry is I don't think that there's going to be a singular source of truth that every single consumer is going to start using in the future. I don't think there's going to be a true monopoly towards a specific channel that everyone's going to use, meaning that you're going to have to diversify your digital marketing portfolio in order to really connect with your consumers at all phases of their journeys, and to be able to meet the consumer in that final purchase journey right where they're the most comfortable.
No, that's great. And I want to give a quick shout out to my theory of advertising graduate professor, University of Florida, Dr. Villegas. The one thing that he really instilled in us is it's all about the marketing mix, right? So when you're trying to advertise to someone, you don't want to just narrow yourself down to one channel, right? Back then we were talking about like billboards, TV, radio, right? But I think it applies to today's world as well. You don't want to just put all your eggs in one basket, in Google's basket. You want to spread it out as much as possible to cast that net as wide as possible to reach your potential customers, your potential target audience. And then you also mentioned, there's not going to be one single truth, one single channel. We'll see, TikTok might not be around after January, but that's a whole nother podcast topic that we don't have time to get into.
Yes. The forever ebbs and flows, for people out there who remember Vine, for who remember all the different channel bases. So you have to be able to that point, be able to pivot and understand market trends, not just from a consumer standpoint, but from a, will it exist in a
Yeah.
year or two standpoint?
And I tell you,
as well?
I'm still mourning Vine to this day. I think Vine was probably my personal favorite social platform ever. Then Twitter got a hold of it, and then Twitter did what it does to all platforms. They also had, I don't know if you remember, I think it was called Anchor, where you could like live stream yourself, and it was a big one. Twitter bought it, disappeared, And so anyway, I also mourn the loss of Twitter, but that's another topic for another podcast. I want to talk about landing pages. I think those are really, really important. We talked about, a little bit more of the theory about driving traffic, about reaching consumers, but landing pages are part of a website where you want people to land on, right? That's why it's called a landing page. And they're so important for paid media. And I see that often by companies. A big mistake is, they're sending traffic to the home page, or they're sending it to the wrong page, So if you can just talk about, with your experience, why are landing pages important?
Yeah. So landing pages are more than just important. They are monumental in their importance to be able to have a fully functioning digital marketing presence. Big reason is content. So yes, your home pages are awesome. You want to make sure you have a fully fleshed out homepage, but most businesses have a plethora of business services and offerings, and each of those offerings most likely aren't going to be the exact same as one another. So you want to be able to articulate those offerings in full to your consumer by having very fleshed out landing pages that fully express the kind of mission objective that you want your consumer to take once they land there. The other big part of it is ease of use within your landing pages. I think, just simply having a landing page isn't quite enough. It's having a landing page that is optimized towards easier user journeys, which your agency does a fantastic job of on the SEO front. And, shameless plug there to you, but it's extremely important because I think all of us know the, I will call patience level of our consumers have continued to dwindle over the years. If there are multiple touch points they have to take to get to the end goal that you desire for them, there's a very low likelihood that they'll make it there. So shortening that consumer journey by having these additional landing pages that are more specified to each of your individual business offerings just allows for an easier path to success. And, the last little tidbit I'll mention is if you put a lot of effort within your landing pages in being super fleshed out from a content perspective, have very relevant information presented there, search engines such as Google will reward you for that.
Right.
And, SEO better than I do, so I won't explain the importance on that front. But to a paid search perspective, the higher relevant content that you're able to activate your paid search ads with that can be tied directly back to verbiage on your landing pages that are strong will give you a positive ranking from Google. They will reward you for that concept because what Google's really optimized towards, whether it's from a paid or organic perspective, is relevancy. Relevancy to the consumer's search to what link or ad that Google's going to serve. If the relevancy isn't there, Google is not going to prioritize your business's positioning on their landing pages or on the SERP.
Yeah, and that makes so much sense, right? And that's why it's a horrible idea to just send your homepage, because I'm trying to sell a specific product. I'm trying to sell a specific service. Why would you just send to the homepage? At minimum, send it out to specific product or service page. Ideally, create a separate paid media landing page. One thing when I got started in this, someone told me is you need on the page, you need to tell people what to do, because people won't, people on the one side, they don't like to be told what to do, but on the website, it's your job to do that because you're paying money for them to come there. So tell them, contact us, fill out this form, buy this product, act now. Those are all important things on a landing page to make sure that you have that call to action for people, because you want to be the best possible steward of the brand, right? And make sure that you're selling that product. So don't be shy, whore yourself out. Let people know, hey, here, you can get this for this amount. Strike now, right? Limited time offer, whatever that is that you come up with. You mentioned user experience, and I'm an old timer in this industry, obviously. So a great example of that I always remember is probably the early 2010s when we had separate mobile and desktop websites, right? You might remember that too, right? When people came to your website, you had like M dot, whatever. And so Best Buy was running an ad campaign and they sent everybody to the desktop, right? And a desktop website back then didn't render on mobile. Like you couldn't use it. It wasn't responsive where like now where you go to a website, it renders correctly on your mobile phone, on your desktop, and on your refrigerator or Tesla screen or wherever you're accessing it now, right? Websites are built in a way that they go with the pixels, whatever that size is. But Best Buy in the early 2010s was sending everybody to the desktop. That wouldn't change, and it was a huge fail on mobile. So that always sticks in my mind is just from a user experience, make sure that you're not just thinking about one view, but what is this landing page like? If you have a form, what's that going to look like on the mobile version versus just the desktop? Are people going to fill this out or even change it? If it's a mobile person, change your call to action, click now to call versus fill out the form because they're more likely to call, send you a text message, et cetera. So to your point, landing pages are monumental. I'm going to use that quote, Jacob, moving forward. I like that. I'm going to steal that one. They are monumental and they're so important to your PPC campaign. So thank you for sharing all that. I want to take a step back and look at social media ads. We talked a little bit about TikTok, how it's part of the full funnel there. But I think also a big component of social media ads or paid ads on social media is the creative, right? The ads themselves. It's something we really haven't talked about yet today is ad copy, right? Like a lot of times if it's a search ad, you write the ad copy, and that's important, right? To have an emotional connection. But then on social, it's so different there. So just curious kind of what your ideas or your thoughts are on social ads versus PPC and kind of, how that goes together with the different ad creatives.
Yeah, I mean, I think paid social a lot of times doesn't get its fair shake in regards to what it's able to provide and drive for a business, because a lot of times it is a mid-funnel tactic, which means it drives great awareness, but it also can drive some conversion volume. But I think it gets unfairly pegged as a awareness only channel, which I don't believe. I just think that there are some attribution hurdles to kind of clear for paid social to be able to get a true understanding of what it provides for your business. But to that point, paid social is terrific because it allows you to tell a story. It allows you to paint a picture for your consumer base on, I mentioned it earlier, but not just what you're offering as a product set, but who you are as a company, who you are as a brand. What do you represent? What is it that you want people to think about you when your brand comes up in day-to-day talks and things of that nature? And from a, user experience standpoint, I think research is a huge component into what type of creative you put in market for specific paid social platforms, understanding, who your consumer is and then breaking down what's most important to that consumer based on demographic, based on, region that they live in, their age, what are the most compelling things for them, and then tailoring your creative within each of those platforms to be able to invoke that response and able, to really drive that user, whether it's from a sentimental value, whether it's from a price point value, whether it's from a, ethics value, if we're talking about, ethically sourced products and things of that nature. Just finding out what's important to your consumer and then working with your internal teams to construct creative and verbiage that's going to draw them to what you're presenting. But we talk about all of this, it still has to be relevant to your business. We don't want to have, unauthentic advertising to where you're trying to overtly paint a picture of yourself that may not be true of your business. So just be real, be honest as to, what it is that you're trying to convey here. I think authenticity is something that, especially the younger user base, is very much craving right now. It seems like the creative across the board within the industry is kind of leaning towards the ethics side of things, but
Right. Yeah.
may not be the most ethical brands that are presenting it. So that authenticity to whatever advertising you put together is kind of that last layer, to where even if you put the most sentimental ads out into market, if your true business practice and or mission objective as a business doesn't align to that ethical based advertising, it's obviously going to falter.
Yeah, and I think that's where even maybe influencers come in, Jacob, right? Like that can be a great part of your media mix, is finding that influencer that represents your brand in an authentic fashion, right? To kind of create that awareness as that, as again, Dr. Villegas shout out, part of that media mix, right? Making sure that you're hitting it all. And that could be nowadays even an influencer as part of that campaign, kind of more towards the beginning of the awareness journey, to get them further down than that they're eventually searching on Google. Because like, oh yeah, I saw that influencer drinking that tea. Let me search on Google, for that Jacob herbal tea and kind of see, if I like it or not.
But no, totally agree. Influencers are going to be key, and to the exact same points that I mentioned earlier, because they could hit on all of those topics and just boost your brand performance.
Yeah. People haven't been paying attention yet. You've been really missing out. But if you have, now is the time to really perk up and pay attention, because we're going to go over our PPC checklist. We put together 9 things that can really help you, your brand, with your PPC. And these are all super actionable, and we'll share them as well in the show notes, put them on the website so you can download them and follow along. So I'm just going to walk through the 9 different checklist items here. And the number one is probably the most important one. We've talked about that a little bit, is defining clear goals, right? So you need to know whether you're aiming for leads, sales, brand awareness, where you're trying to make a difference there. So that's number one. That's where you always want to start. And I think that's not even just PPC, right? That's probably any marketing campaign, but that's stepped over.
Yes.
That's forgotten about so often on the PPC side. Jacob, I know you've been doing this for a while, so you probably see that as well, where a client might even come to you and say, hey, can we run an ad on this platform, or can we do that? And then you kind of got to back it up. It's like, well, if our goal is really this, it doesn't make sense to do that. So I think that's why it's so important to start with the goals, so that way everything else aligns towards those goals.
No, couldn't agree more. Having a clear finish line that you're trying to get towards in your race. If you don't have that finish line, you're ending up just running around in circles. So it's great to have a clear objective and direction that you want to take your marketing, and aligning all of your, tools and resources to be able to meet that goal.
And I think one part of the goal as well is also understanding who you're trying to target, who that target audience is, because that leads into number 2, which is finding those right keywords, right? So you need to use research tools out there to understand what are those high intent keywords that on the one side, like Jacob said, relevant to your business, but also match that searcher intent, that when they're searching for this keyword, they're probably looking for your service or product. And that's why number 2 is target the right keywords.
Yeah, and you got to be a subject matter expert to really get into the thinking process of your consumers. So, for any advertisers wanting to go into paid search, if you love to learn, it's a great channel set to dive into, because you have to really understand the business's workings to be able to have the right intent behind your keyword mix.
Absolutely. And so, a simple hack for me is just do a search yourself and see what comes up, right? What are the competitors that come up for that? What are the ads and everything else? And a lot of times that has really scared me away. It's like, oh, I don't want to come up for that keyword. So that's a simple hack there. Once you know the keywords, you also want to set a realistic budget, right? You want to align that budget. Now you know your goals. I want sales. These are the keywords. Okay. And you can start making projections, right? Okay, this keyword costs this much cost per click. I want to get this many leads. My average percentage rate of people coming to the website and checking out are these percentages. So just run those percentages and numbers together. And then you can actually have a realistic budget and understand what's it going to take in order to move the needle for you. And that's so important, right? Kind of not going in like, I only have this amount there, but actually thinking about on your goal, based on the goals, what should that budget be? Otherwise, you might need to go back, honestly, and just readjust those goals, right? Because you might be trying to bite off too much if you don't have the budget. So I think that's a key component as well, is I've even advised clients, don't even get started. It's not going to make a difference. You're going to get 1 or 2 clicks a day. Why even spend the money there? Let's find something else for you that can make a difference for that same amount.
Yeah, couldn't agree more that, having the feasibility part of this is, if, to your point, if you have $100 a day budget or $50 or $10 a day budget and your CPCs are $1.50, $2, $3, you're going to get 4 clicks in a day, probably not going to be worthwhile to be able to advertise towards. So completely agree there. And I think profitability is another standpoint that helps educate on that kind of front, is that how much would I even need to be able to make back as a business to make these dollars I'm putting into market worthwhile for me? Right. So I think that's a big component that can help educate businesses and different client bases on whether or not paid search is right for them.
Yeah, that's so true. And once you're ready to launch the campaign, we're at number 4 here, is optimizing the ad copy, right? And that's so important. I think that's often overlooked, because writing that clear, compelling ad copy that has that strong call to action a lot of times influences the outcome of the entire campaign, because the creative is a big, big part of this. It's not just all the knobs and dials that you can turn from targeting and all those kind of things, but also you need to have that ad copy that people are seeing and that they're going to connect with based on what they're searching for to bring to the landing page, and then taking that action that you want them to take. So I think that compelling ad copy is an important bullet point there as well here on the list.
Just having that relevancy is going to allow you to be rewarded by Google, not just in your paid efforts, but in your organic efforts as well. So couldn't agree more.
Yep, absolutely. Like you said, relevancy is what it's all about. Moving on to number 5 here is ad extensions, right? So Google ads, search ads, allow all these extensions. If you don't know what they are, you definitely need to look into it and get an understanding, because it's important to expand that footprint. When someone's searching, your ad can be much bigger or it can be smaller if you're not using these extensions. If you are, it can be much bigger, because you can put in site links that it's not just that one landing page, but maybe there's other pages on there that people actually want to go to versus the product. Maybe they want to learn more about you, or maybe they want to find out where your location is. So having those site links, those call outs, and then if you're a local business, that location info is so important. So always make sure you're using all possible ad extensions on the ads campaign.
Yes, and it works in the same facet of having relevant ad copy. Ad extensions having the same relevancy will also boost your quality scores, which is your relevancy score to Google.
Yep.
So it's just more facets in order to make you have a higher propensity to serve on Google and to serve in a higher position to get that true engagement.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Number 6 is the landing pages. We talked about how monumental, again, using Jacob's term there, right? Monumental are the landing pages. That's why number 6 is optimizing landing pages. So making sure they have a great user experience, which means they load fast, right? And there's no ambiguity what's going on that page, making sure they're relevant there, and obviously that they're mobile friendly, because that's often overlooked, right? People are like, oh, this landing page looks great on the desktop or looks great on my laptop. But what about that mobile experience? You're wasting your money, because people are going to be clicking on that ad from their mobile phones as well.
Yeah. And really, I won't go too far down this rabbit hole, but mobile experience is more important than anyone really understands, because a lot of conversions happen on desktop, but a lot of that initial research phases that take place is on mobile. So when you don't have a optimized mobile experience, you are eliminating yourself to be a true part of your consumers' research journeys.
So true. So I think number 7 kind of ties everything together, because you want to monitor the performance regularly. And I think a lot of that's probably your budget, is how long the campaign has been running, right? Like how often you need to check in and how often you need to make changes. And all that should be based on the metrics that you set up during your goal setting step, right? Are you looking at click-through rate, cost per click, conversions, right? To kind of see what's working there. That's really important, because it's not set it and forget it, right? It's set it and monitor all the time to make sure that you're getting the best possible ROI, return on your investment, or return on your ad spend there.
Yeah, and a big part of that goes into your initial setup and
Yes.
putting a lot of work into your setup into the account, so that I think the premise, it's always easier to find something in a clean house versus a dirty house.
Yep.
So if your
I
house
love
is
that.
clean, you have an easier optimization journey.
So true. So going on to number 8 here is we call it A/B testing. And you can A/B test ads. That's probably most important, but you can also A/B test keywords. You want to continuously test variations of ads to see what's working, right? So again, it goes into the setup, Jacob. You set it up and it's great, but then you start seeing iterations. People are gravitating towards certain call to actions, or they're gravitating towards certain search terms. So you want to go down those rabbit holes and see, hey, is there other variations we can try? Is there other variants of this keyword that could even be maybe less expensive? And then, we can stretch the budget even more. So I think A/B testing is fundamental for any PPC campaign.
Testing in general is how you learn. Growing pains, whether the test is positive or negative, there's always something to learn and to glean from it.
Absolutely. Which brings us to number 9 on the checklist, analyzing and optimizing. So you want to use analytics to adjust those bids, pause underperforming keywords, and focus on those high converting ones. And if you're working with an agency, at a minimum, they should be giving you a monthly report with insights and with the metrics that are happening, just so you know how your campaign is doing as well, because it's so important to keep an eye on that and the trends that are happening week over week, month over month, year after year as the campaign goes on.
Yeah, I think, not just reporting, but communication is key when you're working on this, and to be able to, especially specifically to your example of working with an agency or an advertiser, having clear communication both ways. The advertiser telling you clearly what they're seeing on their side, but you clearly illustrating how as a business you've seen changes or no change or negative influences since X, Y, and Z started. So having clear and open communication both ways,
yes.
Whether it's with an agency or an internal team or what have you, is going to be the most successful way to move forward.
Absolutely. It should not just be a black box, right? Hey, here's the money. Good luck, right? You need to always know, hey, this is what's working. That's what we're going to do better. Or, hey, here's what's not working and here's how we're going to improve that. I think is so important, whether that's in-house, you're communicating as the media buyer with the creative team, you're communicating as the agency with the client, no matter where it is. Jacob, great point. You need to communicate and communicate regularly. Awesome. Well, Jacob, that's all the time we have today. Thank you so much for joining. It was a true pleasure. Great to see you. I'm so glad that you're so successful and that you've become this PPC guru. And thank you for sharing some of your knowledge with the listeners today. And all the best moving forward, and look forward to continue watching kind of your journey as you continue here with your PPC expertise.
No, I appreciate it. And the pleasure is 100% mine. Thank you so much for bringing me on here. It's great to come full circle after, knowing each other for so long, and you really being monumental in the start of my journey. So thank you for everything you've done for me as well. And I wish you, your listeners, the podcast, and all things, connected, a successful future here, and looking forward to a really fun new year.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Jacob. I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. And for all the listeners out there, thank you so much for joining us here at the Search Bar. Be sure to connect with me and Jacob on LinkedIn there to follow our journeys in all things digital media. You can find the link in the episode description. And of course, if you have any SEO or PPC questions, feel free to reach out to me directly on LinkedIn. As the CEO of Digital Neighbor, I'm always excited to discuss these topics. And before you go, I'd love if you could leave a review for the podcast. I will read every single one on a future episode and give a shout out to our listeners. Your feedback really helps us improve and keep the conversation going. So again, I hope we filled your glass with digital wisdom and look forward to having you join us on the next episode of the Search Bar. Cheers.